hold still!
I am trying!
Damn! Hold her down!
Let me do it! Hold her down! Irene?
You can blame House for being unethical, rude, or even straight up dangerous, but you can never accuse it of being predictable. Very excited to be reacting to House MD's Season 4, Episode 4, Guardian Angels. On this channel, we are reacting to all 177 House videos, and this will be episode 85. Let's see if I can get the diagnosis before House does as a doctor working in London.
It's a shame they're going to cremate you.
Martin!
Irene!
Science has no explanation for this, so we have to look to the paranormal for an answer. Although if those are the Guardian Angels from the title, then the KGB are a 90s pop band. Why can't science explain what we saw? Well, people don't dream during seizures like this. We saw that there was limb jerking and the patient was unconscious, which means she's having a grand mal seizure. That's where disordered electrical activity affects the whole brain, which makes organized thoughts like we saw impossible. We know that from something called EEG traces, which can sense the electrical activity in the brain during a seizure like this. This seizure would show massive dysregulated brain spikes, which are disordered and universal, but deep sleep or trance-like states where dreaming is possible generally have a low frequency, slow, calm waves that we call delta waves. Of course, it's tough to know for sure unless we could read people's minds while they sleep, which of course is impossible. Or is it? You see, a paper published by Tang and colleagues in 2023 describes a brain-computer interface that can read a person's thoughts and translate them into full sentences. The idea was that it could allow people who lost the ability to speak, like those suffering from stroke or motor neuron disease, to regain the ability to communicate. Of course, we've all seen iRobot though, and in a world that is getting even more connected, we may soon not even have our minds to retreat to for privacy. But thankfully the tech still needs some work though before it can take over the planet, but it definitely gives legs to the famous quote by science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke: "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." Either way, we need some more clues on this patient to figure out what's causing her seizures.
Good morning, angels. Not often you get a patient who sees dead people. Take Bosley and the other visible minority to the funeral home. The rest of you young white people, an MRI with contrast, EEG, LP, and blood panel.
Tell me about Mercy.
To be honest, I don't think Dr. Schaefer really gave me a chance.
As you defied her instructions in hospital procedures. Sounds like you didn't leave house quite soon enough.
Cadavers were clean, so's her food.
The 48-year-old male's cause of death was listed as pneumonia, but the symptoms in the autopsy report didn't fit. Memory loss, depression.
That cow.
What? House got mad cow disease from confusion, memory loss, and depression. What about early onset dementia, infective delirium, or the 65 other things that could be way more common than mad cow disease, which is quite literally a 1 in a million condition? I mean, it is a pretty cool diagnosis though, as it is a type of prion disease. They're complex proteins that are incredibly hard to kill and cause unique and particularly deadly conditions. These prions can withstand heat, so don't degrade from cooking, and could be transmitted through contact with the infected brain tissue, which she most definitely would have as a mortuary beautician. Another type of prion disease is particularly interesting too, called Kuru. It happened in the cannibalistic tribes of Papua New Guinea, as people with the condition began walking as if they were drunk and then had difficulty talking and would start trembling. As it progressed, they can eerily start laughing uncontrollably, and at that point they become unable to eat, and you can predict what happens after. Thankfully, there haven't been cases in a while now, because the tribe realized it's probably not a good idea to eat their loved ones after they pass away. We need our patient to see her loved ones again though, and we have some more clues. The team said that she had no history of epilepsy, trauma, or drug use, and the CT head was normal and the funeral home was clean. We also also know she's in her mid-20s as well, so I've got a few ideas. Well, metabolic could be diabetes and she's going into ketoacidosis. Infectious could be herpes encephalitis or HIV. Degenerative could be early onset frontotemporal dementia. Neoplastic could be an insulinoma that's dropping her sugars. Inflammatory could be, I know it's never this, but it could be lupus, and toxic could be heavy metal poisoning or drug use. I think the team's idea of doing an MRI, LP, blood panel and EEG are pretty spot on, but I'd also want to get a collateral history to find out where our patient's been after hours because, of course, a mortuary isn't spicy enough. Also, very interesting to see that Foreman has now been tainted by his house association, as even when he's away from him, he still practices medicine like him. Beautiful writing. Question for you smart people. How long does it take for you to be close to someone to begin emulating their behaviors? Answers down below.
I want you to do a brain biopsy on a 48-year-old dead guy.
We dig them up.
I was wondering if you needed any extra help in the clinic tonight.
My advice to you is to do whatever House wants you to do tonight.
Sorry, I'm late.
Where the hell have you been?
Oh, I got lost.
Been here over 3 hours. What the hell? Ankles. They buried the guy the wrong way around.
How many of them agreed to dig up a grave?
Sample came back negative for Creutzfeldt-Jakob.
I just want to go home. I'm sure I'm fine now.
Rina, the doctors know best.
Your mother's here?
Alas, this search for pirate gold has found nothing but soggy boots and shame, but we have a new clue: visual hallucinations. You could say it might be short bursts of sleep like in narcolepsy, but then she's having a full-on conversation, so it can't be that. So if she's awake, it could be delirium or psychosis. Delirium is when you have some kind of physical condition that causes an acute deterioration in mental health while the person is unwell. The patient seems to think she's fine though, which is why she wants to go home, and so it's probably not that. That just leaves psychosis. That could be something like schizophrenia, but what could be spicier? We know she's a young, single, slim girl. She could have an eating disorder which led to a nutritional deficiency. Actually, at the start, they also said that she's a vegetarian. That means she could be not getting enough vitamin B12, which can cause confusion, random tingling, seizures, and very importantly, hallucinations. That would be a brilliant diagnosis, as the guardian angel could be a double meaning, like yes, she sees her mum, but also she was trying to protect animals and she shot herself in the foot in the process by not taking her B12 supplements. If you're a vegetarian and you don't eat much dairy, or you're a vegan, then definitely take B12 supplements. So B12 deficiency has to be my first diagnostic guess. It fits so well.
Neurological symptoms are getting worse.
What about a hereditary connection? When she's 24, her mother died when she was 25.
Just for every hereditary disease that fits the symptoms.
Guy in a wheelchair was here?
Said you killed his dog.
You need a job. I need someone that can control House. I'll cut the salary of everyone else on the team. 15% give it to you.
I left for a reason. That reason hasn't changed.
She's seeing Stark, our last patient.
He'd be haunting the doctor who killed him.
Oh, in the previous episode, 13 made a slip up where a patient didn't end up having the medication he was supposed to, and they were eaten by his dog. That meant both the patient and his dog ended up passing away, and now our new patient is seeing them on the ward. She's not alone though. Studies show that 3/4 of Americans believe in ghosts, and 1 in 5 actually claim to have seen one. Even Winston Churchill, after World War II, was visiting the White House where he had an unusual experience. After a bath with a whiskey and cigar, he left to enter the linked bedroom and met the reanimation of Abraham Lincoln. Even while naked, Churchill seemed unfazed, saying, "Good evening, Mr. President. You seem to have met me at a disadvantage." Are these experienced signs from the astral plane, or is there a more worldly explanation for them? Psychologists believe they have the answer by studying people claiming to have these experiences. Studies have shown that some seizures can cause a feeling of being stalked, like there are people around you that you can't see. There are also areas of the right brain linked to seeing ghosts moving objects when they're damaged. There are other forces at play too. Jennifer Whitson, a psychologist from the University of Texas, explains this as a response to a traumatic event like a death or disaster. She says we can't gain control objectively to justify what's happened and need to perceive more structures even if they don't exist. That's evidenced by her studies that show even just asking people to remember when they were out of control can make them start seeing patterns that don't exist. That may seem like it's writing off people's experiences, but remember that the human mind is easily tricked even by itself. Like experiments showing people feeling genuinely happy and more proud of their work when a pre-programmed message tells them you seem to be particularly effective at ordering data regardless of their performance. Or after some people's houses are damaged by a storm, they send death threats to the weatherman who announced it. It's not all sunshine and roses for the skeptics who don't believe in ghosts though, as people who believe in superstitions are found to have significantly better performance on a memory test if they brought their lucky charm with them and have more conviction in their goals and beliefs once they have them, even though that could be a double-edged sword. Speaking of double-edged swords, maybe this hallucination can help us find the answer to her condition.
Why don't we just ask her how she died? I mean, ask her mother.
When you were 4 or 5, she got sick. Did she ever fall down?
Sometimes, not that often.
Did she ever walk funny? Like sort of bent over?
My hands would shiver.
Whoa, these are some very spicy clues. Recurrent falls, stooped posture, shaking of the hands, all fit with Parkinson's disease. But isn't that a disease of the elderly? Her mother was 24 when she passed. Well, there is a rare version called early onset Parkinson's that could feasibly happen at 24. It does have a link with visual hallucinations as well, which can classically include a deceased relative sitting in the room. It would be easy to treat as it's due to a lack of dopamine, so you could just replace it with L-Dopa. The thing is though that the patient herself doesn't have the classic trifecta of Parkinson's, which is slow movement, tremor, and rigid muscles. So maybe she has a Parkinson's related condition called Lewy body dementia, which could cause hallucinations without the motor symptoms. She is a bit too young for that though. Either way, still gonna get my second diagnostic guess.
Start her on L-Dopa and bromocriptine. It's just Parkinson's.
You have to hold still!
I'm trying!
Damn, hold her down!
Let me do it! Hold her down! Irene?
You can blame House for being unethical, rude, or even straight up dangerous, but you can never accuse it of being predictable. Now we have a new clue: bleeding from the arm. Remember that B12 nutrient deficiency theory we had at the start? That wouldn't cause bleeding, so that guess was about as useful as a bird in a helicopter. What could cause bleeding then? Niacin deficiency. She's a vegetarian, which means they tend to have lower intakes of niacin compared with their meat-eating counterparts. That can lead to hallucinations, skin rashes, gastrointestinal problems, and many others. It's usually summarized as the 3 Ds: dermatitis, dementia, and diarrhea. Treatment would be simple with just replacing her niacin. That has got to be my third and final diagnostic guess. We are locked in.
Vasculitis restricts blood flow to nerves, messes with electrical function.
Acute intermittent porphyria is a better fit.
Start her on the steroids.
I'm sorry, man. Good luck.
See, that freaks me out.
What's wrong? My stomach, it hurts. Oh. Why won't you help me?
It's the liver. It's necrotic. She's dying from the inside out.
Vascular isn't just vasculitis. Something's got to be cutting off the blood supply to her liver and spleen.
Do a visceral angiogram.
You're feeding him your ideas just to embarrass us.
I pray thee that thou shalt give the Holy Ghost. Irene, what are you doing?
I need to touch it. Give it to me. I want.
Well, you came in for an interview for a hub, just didn't know which one. Now she's got yellow eyes, had bleeding of the skin, and still has the hallucinations. House is saying that something's stopping the blood from making its way to the liver and spleen as well. They tried her on the Parkinson's meds, which didn't work, so maybe her mum didn't have Parkinson's disease and instead had something called Parkinsonism. I know they sound like they're the same thing, but they're actually very different. Parkinsonism can produce signs and symptoms of Parkinson's disease without the same underlying genetics and degeneration, which means it's more easily reversible if the underlying cause is found. Environmental causes such as pesticide or manganese exposure could cause it. Maybe she has a secret garden she goes to chill out after work, or she actually has straight up Wilson's disease and that can cause Parkinsonism, liver failure, the skin symptoms, and the visual hallucinations. So that would work quite well. Can I revise my second guess to that? I guess not. We'll be so annoyed if I'm right.
Couldn't finish. She started groping me.
We had to knock her out with lorazepam.
What would Joseph Smith do? You believe that the book has all the answers. The book is inconsistent with science. How many teenage witches were stoned to death because they took mushrooms? You either got to prescribe an exorcism or admit to me that Smith was a horny fraud.
I know what she has. Mushrooms weren't the only thing that got people stoned to death. Moldy bread. It's ergot poisoning. It's the stuff they make LSD from.
Ergot poisoning from moldy rye bread. Damn, I missed that glaringly obvious connection between guardian angels, religion, and stoning people to death for possession of moldy bread. Yeah, I had zero chance on that one. You see, ergot poisoning has been exceptionally rare in the developed world since around the 1800s. It's called ergot poisoning as contamination of grains with a fungus called C. purpurea would replace the grains to form a dark, hard ergot. The symptoms include muscle spasms, seizure, and hallucinations with reduced blood flow to the tissue organs like the liver, which caused her liver failure. Treatment would be with stopping the exposure, but there isn't a direct antidote. So with prolonged exposure, it could take months for the symptoms to disappear. So I wonder if that'll happen here.
So I've just been tripping. She's not here. But you'll live. I'm going to miss you.
So, according to my arbitrary schedule, one of you has to go. Leaving the collar was stupid. Well-known fact. Ghosts don't leave things lying around. Sorry, Henry.
Don't need someone to tell you what you're already thinking.
Rest of you, 8 o'clock tomorrow. Take your blood money.
You can come back at your original salary. The only administrator that will touch you is the one who hired House Classic.
I can start Monday.
Foreman's back, the patient's mother is gone, and our Mormon hitting house earned him some street cred and $100 for Cameron in a bet. Pretty good episode overall. I loved the connected themes. 7.5 out of 10 entertainment, 6 out of 10 accuracy because of how quickly she recovered after the miraculous treatment, which I'm pretty sure doesn't exist, and 7 out of 10 diagnosis. This episode doesn't make full sense though until you watch the previous one where a NASA astronaut needs to get treated but keep it on the hush.